It has been a rough couple of days after the Lions lose in heartbreaking fashion. So there we go from being one half away to going to the Super Bowl. We lose. Then it's like, well, Ben Johnson's gone as well. It's just this. We'll see what happens with Aaron Glenn. You just kind of wondering what's going to happen. We all kind of took a couple days off, and now we're back at it. And we get the news that Ben Johnson is actually staying, and this is huge for so many reasons. We'll get right to it. Also, going to look at some more good news as we look at a mock draft here at the end of the video, and it's pretty cool to see all the options available to us in the first round and in the second round. But this is huge for so many reasons. Number one, Ben Johnson stays. The X's and O's and the continuity with Jared Goff and those guys only getting more comfortable with each other, huge. Secondly, it just shows how much he respects and believes in Dan Campbell. We all do, and we get the fourth down stuff. But big picture wise, Lions are in great shape. Future is as bright as ever. Thirdly, the organization, top to bottom, just again, he interviewed with other teams. He got to talk to front offices, got to talk to ownership. And so for him to come back, and who knows his exact reasons, but it's just obviously he believes in the Sheila and things that are going on up top. And then lastly, I said this last year when he came back, and I'll say it again. He obviously sees that, man, we're going to be winning here. Like, do I go to the Commanders and I don't really have a quarterback and like what that franchise, I'm going to, he knows he's going to win here. If this was like, man, this was a fluke, this is coming off the rails, I'm out of here. No, this is like full on, a lot of good things coming. Future is bright. So for him to stay here just tells you a lot about the Lions, the front office, Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson. Like, the guy's smart. He's not just bouncing. He's like, you know what? I'm making good money, making whatever he makes, $3 million a year, $2 million a year. I don't have to go rebuild a franchise. I can just sit here under Dan Campbell and just keep on winning. Jared Goff, I love that. So huge. That's the news. Jared Goff coming back. But here's some more good news as we kind of look at. Again, we'll do some full mock drafts and look at some different scenarios. But as you look where the Lions are, and this is great, man. Seeing the Lions picking 29th, that's great, right? We're year after year up here in the top 5, 6, 7, 8. That's not good. We don't want to be there. We want to be right here, picking in the low 20s. Brad Holmes obviously knows what he's doing. So you look at some of the options here. You got Lassiter out of Georgia. He was a 2-year starter, really took cornerback number 1 last year, 6 foot, 180 pounds. But I like to look around at who else is around or who could fall, those types of guys. Chop Robinson, sup. Like, let's go. Take him all day. Look at some of these other corners. Quinnen Mitchell out of Toledo. I've seen his name quite a bit. Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. Oh, yeah. Kool-Aid McKinstry, another corner. Nate Wiggins, Arnold. So you look at the corners and who's available, and you get to the top, and it's a lot of quarterbacks, offensive linemen, wide receivers are going. And then the UCLA defensive end is kind of the first Dallas Turner out of Alabama. Then it goes to the UCLA edge. So those are your 2 edge guys. And then the first corner off the board is Arnold at 13. So what I love about this is there's not like that elite corner that's going to go like Sauce Gardner in the top 5, but there's nice depth right in the mid range, right where we're going to be. So corner is obviously something we're just very focused on. I mean, wouldn't we were a corner away from making some plays. I mean, really. And that's amazing that through it all, Brad Holmes is really, it's a kicker and a corner. I mean, right. You can't get it all. This thing was torn down to the studs. And in just a couple of years, he's got elite dudes all over the place. But I mean, this is that final draft that like we all knew he had to have in order to get us to competing, and we're ahead of schedule. So to add a corner and then another tackle would be huge. And then here's PFF put out one free agent that every team should really go after, and they said Justin Matabuki. Thank you. This is a defensive lineman, an interior defensive lineman that had a 77 PFF pass rushing grade, 64 total pressures, 31 sacks, and quarterback hits. on just 512 pass rushing snaps. So we know this. Defensive lineman John Kaminsky really was like not really there the last half of the year, really the whole year after having a strong season last year. So you've got Aleem, you've got Aiden, but then interior wise, it'd be nice to have a stud. Everybody wants that. This is a guy we can go after in free agency. I love that. Mock draft wise, they've got us going after Leonard Taylor with the 30th pick. Love that as well. I mean, defensive linemen, defense, right? Brad Holmes chose, and just the way it fell, he chose to go offense with this first couple of drafts. And then he tried going defensive lineman with Onwuzurike, Levi, Aleem McNeil, Hutch, Broderick Martin, but it's still not there. So we have to go defensive line, corner, defensive line and corner, defensive line and corner, defensive line and corner. Like that's my gosh. And when we trust Brad Holmes and we know he's going to do something that we don't expect, he's probably not going to do it, right? Like he's just probably not going to, but and surprise us and it'll work out. But that's what we have to do. Then you look at teams with the most free agency money. We're about 60 million. We've got our own free agents. We've got a lot that we have to do free agent wise and decide on a lot of guys. And I should have pulled up the list, but there's a huge list of our own free agents, but it's an easy list. CJ Gardner-Johnson tops the list. You're not coming back, man. You talked way too much. You were injured. You didn't back it up. You almost cost us in this game with that stupid foul, personal foul against Debo. I mean, just stuff like that. It's like, that's not what this team is. That's not what we're going to have on this team. We want guys that love football, love each other. And we don't have that individual dude. And if we did, it would be, he's a star and it's like, fine. CJ Gardner-Johnson is not. And for a guy that was injured all year to come back and really run his mouth more than we needed there. So anyway, there's a bunch of guys like that. CJ Gardner-Johnson, I think Tracy Walker, right? There's just no, like Craig Reynolds, love you. But like if Craig Reynolds doesn't come back next year, are we dying? No. Like, right, we'll find it RB3. There's a lot of those guys, not our core guys. There's not any core guys yet because they're still so young. So Brad Holmes has to look, does he want to extend Goff? What does that look like? What does Goff really want to do? That'll be the biggest question because Goff is smart. He knows what's happening. He saw how his career was in the dumps and he gets traded and he's just like, what am I going to do? And he's like, dude, this is great. Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, division, the players, the fans, the city, everything's here. Ben Johnson keeps staying. So for him to just be like, I want 55 million, that's like, there's no way. There's no way he does that. So he can go get that. He can go get whatever he wants out there in the open market, but I think he stays here. It's a very good fit. They work it out. They give him 40 million, right? He can get 50 anywhere he wants to go. If he was by next year, the year after, whatever. Give him a nice solid contract and he's happy, but he's not going crazy. So Ben Johnson, like we said, he's staying. This is huge. He told the Commanders and the Seattle Seahawks that he was staying. I don't know if he was offered or anything, but just went out ahead of it and said, I'm staying. Washington Commanders still interviewing our defensive coordinator. So who knows there, but fine, right? We're good. While the abrupt pivot by Johnson was considered surprising by several league sources, he was not considered a lock for the Washington job despite a strong reputation as a coordinator and a loyal coach. The Commanders leadership team remains eager to meet with Glenn, who was several candidates considered for the head coaching vacancy, the sources said. So, love it. This is great. Johnson interviewed with the Falcons, the Panthers, the Chargers before those were filled. And for the second straight season, Johnson was viewed as one of the hottest names, but continues to stay with the Lions. It's huge. Like I said, it's for so many reasons, because you can look at how he was able to, man, Jared Goff, the offense, it's all there. And man, you're going to tell me Jameson Williams isn't going to get better? That Jahmyr Gibbs isn't going to get better? Offensive line's still there for another year. Jonah, we'll figure out. We'll just keep getting better on the offensive line. It's so valuable to have a good offensive line. We see that now. St. Brown's going to get better. We might look for another receiver outside of Josh Reynolds. I like Josh Reynolds, and I'm not looking at those drops in the game but it's just like we need that. We need one more receiver outside of Jameson Williams that's dependable, and maybe Reynolds is that guy, right? Maybe that's what they view him as, that guy. But it feels like we're just maybe one receiver a little short. That's being picky. If that was the receivers next year, I'd be fine with it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Good news finally. Ben Johnson comes back. It's time to start the offseason. Let me know your thoughts, and we'll see all of you on the next one.